Before we begin, I will share a land acknowledgement. Intiman Theatre acknowledges that we gather in community on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor with gratitude the land itself, its First Nations, and those who have gathered here since time immemorial. We welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat and also to share the land you're zooming in from. You can find out that by visiting the link that we just dropped in the chat. It also is the beginning of Ramadan, and I want to offer and wish folks that are celebrating Ramadan Mubarak or Ramadan Kareem. So thank you all for being here. It's just an honor to be in this space with you, and I'm going to turn it over to Wesley.
Hi, everyone. Wow, what a pleasure. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Welcome to our Share the Love event, New Play Development as a Tool for Community Building. I'm so excited to have this conversation. This is our second of 4 live events for the Share the Love campaign. We are thrilled to have you with us today. A few housekeeping details and accessibility notes. Today's event is being recorded. Please keep your microphone on mute during the event. We recommend viewing in speaker view instead of gallery. So if you might be in gallery, you'll find yourself with tons of squares. If you change in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you can switch to speaker view. That's the most optimal way to watch today's conversation. Live captions are available, and you can turn them on by selecting the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. Lastly, please keep our space polite, and no rude or racist speech will be allowed. As you saw earlier, our Share the Love campaign is running until April 24th. It's 18 days to raise $100,000 in support of our move to Capitol Hill. We are so excited to be the professional theater in residence at Seattle Central College. I'm going to share this fun little tracker with you all. So you can see right now where we are in terms of our fundraising campaign and progress. It's the 8th day, and I'm also very excited to say that we have a donor who's offering a $5,000 match today only. So that's everything raised today up to $5,000. This donor is going to double it. So that would be $10,000 in one day. Wow, I think we can do it. So many of you have been joining us today, and we have only about $3,000 left to go. So thanks, and I'm going to shout out the people that we see here on our screen: Kathy, Amy, Rich, Lisa, and Andrew, Chris. Wow, thank you all so much for making a contribution. So at any point during today's conversation, you can text Intiman to 44321 to make your donation. All amounts are going to be doubled today, and a little bit later, we'll come back to this screen. I also want to thank our incredible sponsors of our Share the Love campaign. So you'll see them here on your screen, and especially at the presenting partner, we have the Myers Group and Franklin Pierce Northwest. And at our supporting level, we have Rudenoff Residential, Lark, Monsoon, Downtown House Cleaning, and Southpaw. Some really amazing restaurants, and you'll see the other friends and media partners that we have supporting this campaign. So huge shout out to all of them and to all of you for making Intiman's future possible. Now I have the sincere and incredible pleasure of welcoming our host for today's event, Justin Huertas. I'm going to find him up here, and I'm going to bring him onto your screen. Oh my God, there he is. Justin is a Seattle-based, award-winning playwright, composer, lyricist, actor, and musician who last appeared with Intiman Spot. And if you could all do me a favor and mute your microphone if it is not, that would be incredible. His original musical, Lizard Boy, world premiered at Seattle Rep. I loved it. It was incredible. And I hear it's going to be on stage again this fall at Theater Works, Silicon Valley. So maybe we'll be buying plane tickets. Justin also wrote The Last World Octopus Wrestling Champion, A Very Merry Kraken Tea Party, Lydia and the Troll, and he's the composer-lyricist of Howl's Moving Castle and The Lamplighter. Welcome, Justin!
Yay! Thanks for having me. Shall I? Yes, I will. I'm going to take over now. Hello. Yeah, thank you so much, Wesley, for that introduction. Thank you, Intiman, for having me. Good evening, everyone. So excited to be here to kind of like, I don't know, flex my moderator muscles. I don't do that a lot. So this is kind of a cool thing to do and talk to like two of my favorite artists in the entire world. Speaking of which, why don't I talk to you a little bit about Sara Porkalob? Everyone welcome Sara Porkalob, one of our panelists. Sara is a theater maker, cultural worker, and creator of The Dragon Cycle. She was Intiman's 2017 co-curator and emerging artist program director. Intiman produced Dragon Lady, the first play of The Dragon Cycle, and it won a bunch of awards. And then the second in the cycle, Dragon Mama, premiered at American Repertory Theater, ART, and then it won a bunch of awards. And then ART commissioned the third in the cycle, Dragon Baby, which will premiere on their stage in the near future. Sara's also going to make her Broadway debut in the Broadway revival of 1776. Sara, thank you so much for being here and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. All right, let's also bring on Andrew Russell. I don't know why I had to do that like it was sports.
I liked it. I felt better about myself.
Yes. Andrew is the former producing artistic director of Intiman, where he directed Hedda Gabler, Stew for Silverton, Angels in America, Dragon Lady, and co-wrote John Baxter's A Switch Hitter, which I also saw, and it was beautiful. In addition to developing the Dragon Cycle with Sara, he's currently developing projects for stage, TV, and film that include the coming-to-age journey of bounce artist Big Freedia, the diva-turned-detective tale of Dorothy Kilgallen.
You got it. And I see Rich Gray is also on this call.
And yes, and the story of America's first trans mayor in Silverton, Oregon, Stew for Silverton. Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for being here, Andrew. Thank you for being here, Sara. I don't know. You want to just jump in? Let's just jump in. So tonight we're talking about new play development and investing in new work and new voices and the power that telling these stories can have in our communities to advance positive social change. As we move forward, y'all, if you have questions for the panelists, please drop them in the chat and we will do our best to just like keep track of your questions so that we can get to them at the end of the discussion. Yes, well, first of all, I have so much love and respect for both of you. You're both amazing. I'd love to know how each of you found your way into new work, new plays, new musicals. What was like the spark that kind of attracted you to this work in the first place? Let's start with Sara.
Yeah, let's see. I graduated from Cornish in 2012, which is almost 10 years ago. Crazy. And it was my sophomore year there that we had a sophomore ensemble class that everybody had to take. And essentially what it was generative ensemble, which meant that every week we were given a problem from the faculty that we had to solve in smaller groups. And how we would solve that problem would often result in a performance of some kind. It was that year that I discovered I loved collaborating with folks. I loved problem solving, and I really enjoyed making something new compared to working on something that was already established. And then it was really my junior year that I decided to take one of the tracks that Cornish offers called Original Works, which has a special emphasis on playwriting, directing, and producing. And that's where the Dragon Cycle grew, largely in response to the seemingly endless list of white playwrights and plays centering white folks that I was experiencing the 4 years of college and that I was watching as well happening as far as what was being produced in Seattle theater. And as a brown woman, I decided that if I wanted to make a career with stories that looked like where I came from, looked like the communities that I came from and that I grew up in, then I I probably had to do that on my own. And new work seemed to be the best answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew, how about you? How did you get kind of involved in new work?
I think that there are just more ways to interrogate the question why that I love about it, and I think some of that has to do with the kind of chemical makeup and the creature that I am, that I'm more interested in the gnarly insides that then when you zoom out they become something, which I know sounds abstract, but anyone who's ever sat down with me for more than 10 minutes knows what I'm talking about. Speaking of humans, it's just so good to see so many people that I know and that are part of this incredible community on this call. And I am understating it when I say how much I miss being a part of this community and being in that big, beautiful city. And of course, to those virtually not in that city, I miss, obviously having connections there as well. So I just want to say, like, thanks for being here. And it's so nice to, see you again on the screen. But I think just the chance to ask why and have the answer not be, oh, because it's what's on the page or it's what that person wrote, but rather the why is responsible, or the what's held responsible for the why are the people actually in the room. And I, some of those seminal moments for me are being in the room with, the Nottage when she was creating Ruined, and just seeing the care that one has to take when they're adapting something from real life into a show that's going to be on stage. And it's a kind of care that I don't think it's not about sort of creating a binary that can't exist in classical work, but it's a care that I really love, and I think allows you to make more intentional and personal choices. And I actually it's sort of ironic that I'm wearing this shirt from Angels in America, which is the last classic that I worked on, which was now almost 10 years ago. And then it's being conquered right over my heart almost by this brooch of Sara on my chest. So it's I didn't do that intentionally. I did this just for nostalgia, but it's I didn't realize how long it has been since I've even worked on a classic.
Well, that is, I mean, the pin on that T-shirt is very symbolic, and however unintentional, it's actually perfect for this conversation. You both actually touched on something very similar about the idea that, like, there's the work of new plays, new musicals can be so much richer, just because when you're diving into classics, like you said, like the answer to the questions are usually it's on the page, or you have to take what's on the page, retain it, and figure out how to interpret it for an audience that might be in a more progressed or developed society than the last time, than when the play was written. And I think that's really, it's really, I mean, it's reflected in the work that you both do, and the work that you both create, which I think is amazing. I want to ask, in your experience, Andrew, I'll start with you, since I'm just saying, like, you're unmuted, so I'm just going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you really quick. In the new work that you've had a hand in developing, are there any, like, audience responses or audience responses, community responses to the work that you've done that have kind of stuck with you in some way? And I guess it can be any kind of response that kind of, like, kept you, I mean, like, I was just thinking, like, it could be a negative response that just kept you going, but
I was going to say, if there are a lot of humans on this call that know me, that the ride has not been without bumps, y'all. What I think about is that anything that I've worked on, and obviously this really resonates with the work that I've been blessed to do with Sara, is about real life humans who have a story that could be forgotten, that should be canonized and should be celebrated as, as part of, as Valerie Curtis Newton says, those are the fabric of America and the fabric of the stories we tell. And the reason I say that is that it's good, bad, or ugly, often very sacred and moving. Like, I think about Stu for Silverton, I think about the work with Sara, I think about John Baxter, I think about the work that I've done even since leaving Intiman, is that there's a different kind of ceremony that's happening that might lead to healing, that might lead to, something bigger, which I think theater does so beautifully. And I think that any of those memories, like, I'll never forget sitting next to Stu during the first premiere of Stu for Silverton. I'll never forget being with Sarah's family after the premiere of Mama in Boston and just feeling like I didn't have skin, my insides were outsides, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's what keeps me going. I'm unfortunately just not as committed to the craft without a real life tether. And so any of the beautiful memories that engine me are really linked to, how has it done something bigger than just I closed my playbill and moved on.
That's wonderful. I think that's amazing that you have had multiple experiences where you've gotten to watch the thing that you're working on with like the subjects of like the thing that you're working on, the people, the real people who you've gotten to know artistically are now in the audience with you, and kind of like seeing this wonderful interpretation of their.
Yeah, I get to be a gooey fangirl where Sara Porkalob has the gargantuan task of carrying it and living it, and so it's a blessing, but it's because of humans that do such, I would argue, very bold storytelling like Sara does.
Yeah, 100%. Sara, what are some of the Sara? What are some like kind of like impactful responses that you've experienced? I mean, being someone who like literally shares their their family's life stories, generations of their family's life stories on stage for people.
Thank you. I try to make it a point that after I perform any of my autobiographical work, to stay after the show and chat with the people who've taken the time to wait. And I'd say one that I'll always remember is the very first night that I performed Dragon Lady at ART, which is the first time I had performed any of my plays outside of Seattle. We got there, I got off the plane, got to the theater, teched the show in one day, and I think I had a preview that night, Andrew, or it was like a tech rehearsal. Anyways, I was very tired. And after that first performance, I was like, did I even do a good job? And I come out, and there's a young person standing there waiting for me, and I could tell that they're Filipino. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And they came up to me and they were like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be weird, but I just want to let you know that I'm Filipino. I go to Boston University. I have never seen a play where a Filipino person was telling a Filipino story. And this really means a lot to me because my lolo, their grandpa, had passed away a month earlier, and they hadn't been able to go back and see them. And so Dragon Lady, the first play in my trilogy of plays, is my grandmother's story. And for those of you who have seen it, you know that my grandmother makes a cameo appearance at the end of the show, which is really magical. Even though I know it's about to happen, every time it happens, I'm a mess. And so to feel like something I had made as a gift for my family became a gift for my community was really powerful. And I used to think that community impact could be measured in numbers. And I feel very deeply now that community impact should be measured via relationships. So yeah, there's been many instances of young people, older folks, families coming to me, who are Filipino or who are immigrants or children of immigrants or white folks being like, I don't know if this is wrong of me to be like, your story spoke to me because I really love my grandma. And I'm like, it's not wrong. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, actually, how the specificity of one person's story can like reach across the audience and move someone.
And that's beautiful. The idea that like of community impact, measuring it in relationships is so very true. Like a lot of times it's the activation of like, imagination, in like it can be a small number of, it can be one person, but that one person is spreading, the pride in their culture that they got to see performed on a stage with other people, with their own families. And the idea that like, when you see something captured on a stage, it can sometimes imbue it with some kind of importance for you. And for that person, like, they were seeing their family on a stage, and it was imbued with this kind of like importance that like they've never seen before. And I just think that's beautiful. I mean, for new work for me, I just love the opportunity to kind of lift people. I mean, like, you know, for you and me both, Sarah, like lift up our, you know, the Filipino community and say like, you're allowed to see yourself here in this place, and you're allowed to see yourself struggle, and you're allowed to see yourself win, and you're allowed to see yourself kind of, you know, save the day. Yeah, I just think that's beautiful. Speaking of Dragon Lady, I would love to talk about the Dragon Cycle. And I just had this moment of like, should we take a moment to say what the Dragon Cycle is? Because all of you know what the Dragon Cycle is, but you know, like we should just like give everyone like the same kind of baseline, even though all of us know. Sarah, can you let us know what the Dragon Cycle is?
Definitely. The Dragon Cycle is a trilogy of matrilineal musicals, one play dedicated to a central female protagonist of a specific generation of my Filipino American family who are fighting to survive and thrive in America, thanks to karaoke, danger, romance, and a host of other wild adventures. Dragon Lady is a solo show, a two-act solo show focusing on my grandmother. It is in part her immigration story and also an homage to I would say a deconstruction of the Dragon Lady of stereotype, which is still very much pervasive in Western media. I wanted to title my play with words that had once been used as weapons against my culture and to repurpose them as tools for myself and for my family and for my audience. So Dragon Lady is a two-act cabaret musical with original music and cabaret covers accompanied by a three-man band, myself playing 32 characters with one costume, and a cameo appearance by my real grandmother. Dragon Mama is a true one-woman show, me in a black box theater playing 24 characters about my mother and what it was like for her to be the eldest daughter of an immigrant family growing up queer and brown and poor in pretty much white Bremerton, Washington, and what it was like for her to become a mother before she even had the chance to be a woman. And then Dragon Baby is a 10-person, two-act original musical that is ostensibly my story. That's the cycle.
I can't wait to see Dragon Baby. I have seen Dragon Lady in a few iterations. One of the most impactful ones for me was Dragon Lady was a production called Madame Dragon's 60th birthday.
Yeah.
At Cafe Nordo, and you specifically called for a Filipino chef to curate all of the evening's menu. And honestly, some of that food I hadn't tasted since I was a small child. And like, while you performing the show was making me cry, there would be a meal in between, and there'd be like sinigang or something, and I just like put it in my mouth, and then I just started crying again. That was amazing. I've also seen Dragon Mama a couple times, once at the Seattle Fringe Festival, I think. And I just can't wait to see Dragon Baby. Yeah.
I would like to say too, you know, I appreciate you saying that about the iteration of Dragon Lady that you really enjoyed, because in my mind, that's like the most perfect example. That production captured everything that I want Dragon Lady to be. If I could have my way, and maybe I can. Dragon Lady, when performed in rep with the other musicals, will have Filipino food. There will be cocktails. The love language of food is something that I know many cultures can relate to. Food is a necessity. We all need it, and we share it. We should share it when we have it, right? And also for folks who are listening, especially when we're talking about new work, the iteration that Justin is talking about was like draft production number 8 of Dragon Lady. And that's one thing that I just wanted to amplify for folks who are listening who are original storytellers or people focused and excited about new work, is that new work requires time to develop it, to focus on it. And there exists in our American society and in Western theater and Western entertainment an overvaluing of linear storytelling and an overvaluing of perfectionism. Many people see Dragon Lady on stage in its final form now. And I'm so glad that so many of those folks have been along for the ride, because I was able to learn and develop that piece into what it is today, thanks to those people, thanks to so many people right now in the participant uh, box. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without my community. I just wanted to amplify that.
Literally, Kathy Shedd just commented, I think I've seen 6 of the Dragon Lady iterations, 9 of the total 3 pieces, and have loved them all. Yes. I mean, like, talk about, like, you know, fangirling. We're into it. We're into the cycle. I want to quickly, now that I'm looking at the chat, reminder, if you have questions for the panelists, please drop them in the chat. We're going to come to your questions pretty soon here. Andrew, I want to ask when and how did you get involved in the Dragon Cycle? I know that you directed Dragon Lady and Dragon Mama, and to my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're also directing Dragon Baby.
As a young boy, I prayed to a God that I didn't yet know I didn't believe in. And I said, God, let me do something worthwhile in this world. Let me use my superpowers to make stories change the world. And it happened. That's how it started. That's truth, I think, to some degree, to a lot of degree. And I saw the Norda show, blown away, truly thought, like, this is, where is the Pulitzer? Give it right now. Have everyone see this every night of the week. Like, truly was, and Jen knows this because afterwards I was like, insert gooey fangirl, like, what is happening? And then from there was like, okay, you know, we're doing a co-curation model after the launch year that we did it with Valerie Curtis Newton. And we said, okay, what if we partner with Sara, which led to a co-curation year. And I think throughout that conversation, Sara, although I know you were a little reluctant, not because you didn't think it was a good idea, but just sort of like how to, you know, leverage and situate power about doing it. But we basically determined, you know, this is a great use of the resources, the audience, the community that Intiman is trying to build, and it also intersects with Sara's development and growth as an artist. And so I had the pleasure of working with her on that. And then as she made such incredible relationships at ART and built out, you know, those production contracts, she was like, do you want to come and do this first run of Lady? And then after that, ART fell understandably deeply in love, despite the icy nature of Bostonians. Let me tell you, if you ever doubt, which I don't know why you would, Sara's potential to just cut through it, never again.
I was amazed.
So, immediate. So it just kept rolling and tumbling. And I think, you know, it is I've said this before on calls, that it is just a great, beautiful honor to support and you know, help bring these stories to life.
What does can I ask, what is like, what does the development process kind of look like when you two like jump into a room together? I've seen, I know, like, you know, I'm an avid follower of Sara Porkalob on all social media, and I've seen like a pic.
I'll get with it if you haven't.
I have a pic or two of like, you know, a giant table with just like post-it or note cards or post-its, just like gridded out and spread out wide, and it just makes me so curious about your process and hungry to like know more about it.
Can I jump in on this? So as Andrew said earlier, and some of you might know, my relationship with Intiman began in 2017 with the co-curatorship, this very unique model of shared power. And it was the first time in my career that an institution said, hey, we like your ideas and we like what you have to say. What else do you have to say? Would you like some institutional power? And I was like, yes, but also very like nervous, very nervous. Being being a brown person in theater and being wary of predominantly white institutions. Being wary because I didn't want to be tokenized. I didn't want my autonomy to be stripped in the guise of shared power. So to be very frank, when I first started working with Andrew, I was nervous. I was working with someone for the first time pretty intimately on a piece that up until then I had exercised like complete control over. I went into our first process together knowing pretty intuitively, I was like, I have to know that I can trust Andrew. Andrew has to show me that I can trust him. And then on the other hand, I was like, yeah, and I want to be somebody that Andrew can trust. I want to be somebody that Andrew feels like he can be honest and accountable with. And eventually, as we begin to build this language and this trust together, we will find how we work as collaborators. But I very clearly went into our relationship with the intention of beginning the relationship from like accountability and trust building, because I can't be creative with somebody that I can't trust. And looking back, I was really resistant at first to do what Andrew wanted me to do, and I don't regret it. I stuck to my guns. And when I was able to go, you know what, let me just try what he's saying, because up until now, every step he's shown me along the way is like, this is his attempt to get me to try something new for us together, just to see what happens. And every step he was like, you don't got to do this. You don't have to do what I say. And that was really wonderful because it began to feel like we were sharing power. And then I came to trust him implicitly with the story because I saw how much he cared about it and about my family. And we're like peers first and like collaborators second in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And sticky notes, lots of sticky notes.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
intense. He had me improving for hours at a time, y'all. Hours at a time. He would record and he'd send it to me and I'd be
still have
amazed.
them.
Sometimes I'd be like, I blacked out during that improv. What did I say? Sorry, your turn.
I mean, yeah, it is a deep intentional relationship, which of course the meaningful ones are, but I think what happens in our industry is it's so often like, oh, hey, I got this director and we got this writer, go make the thing, and yet we're bringing so many pieces of ourselves to it, especially with work like this. And I think what has always brought me the most joy is I just literally am an old-fashioned recorder and I say, hey, Sara, you may not know that you just did blank and it looked and it felt like blank and it had the impact of blank. Do you want to be sharing blank, and do you want it to look and feel like blank, and do you want it to have the impact of blank? Yes or no? Because then we can proceed. And I think you're about to say something, Sara, go.
And that's huge because up until that point, I'd only ever had collaborators who had said, should you be doing that? I think you could do this. I think you should do this. Why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Disguised as an open-ended question, but ultimately like trying to lead me to the answer they wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
How
Right.
how we talk to people has an impact. And
Mhm.
again, that was just evidence that like Andrew was leaving the decision making to me, and I was making room in my process for him as a collaborator and for him as a friend.
Yeah.
And along the way, we built new tools together.
Right.
And after a while, it was like, dang, we can be really efficient when institutions give us money in a rehearsal room and place to stay. Wow. I was able to write Dragon Mama in 2 weeks. And it took me about 3 years to write Dragon Lady, 3 to 4 years. That's the difference in what happens when you share power and you share resources.
Yes. Yes. Well, to my understanding, we, thanks to you two, get a sneak peek into Dragon Baby. and I would love to see it. So we're gonna share it. Here we go. Do we want to set it up in any way before we play it?
Yeah. So friends who are watching, as I mentioned before, Dragon Baby is the third in the trilogy. Imagine that this is a trailer of sorts. I have this magical ability to play many people with no costume changes or props with one chair. And so when we designed this trailer, we were really playing with like, what can Sarah do talking directly to the camera? So I mean, enjoy this little trailer for Dragon Baby.
My name is Sara Lee. My pronouns are her, hers, and she. And in my life, I see white supremacy and poverty and a broke immigrant family. And it's got me thinking, is life in Bremerton truly my destiny? Because I'm pretty sure that when I was born, the planets took one look at me and they were like, damn, she may change the world, but first, let's give the girls some intergenerational trauma and drama and some shitty karma and maybe a little eczema just for fun. So, I can't wait until I'm gone, senior year BFA. Bye-bye school, the world will see the star that I've become. And add me to the talent pool, Broadway, here I come. That was the plan, man, was getting out. Until my grandma's birthday when she started to shout. Today is my 70th birthday. The most important birthday of my old people birthdays because it means I have to tell you my story because I'm going to die soon. So listen carefully, Sara Lee, my cheesecake baby. Hold on to your butt. There is a house in the Philippines. I lived there when I was young. My father was a corrupt politician. My mother died after I was born. My brother sold me and my sisters to the city to pay off my father's gambling debt. From then till when I moved to America, my life is a secret that I always kept. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's not much left, cause I've been gambling and smoking so long that all of my children think that my mind is gone. But I ain't never killed a man that didn't deserve it. Rapping grandmas are really unheard of. Now my truth is out, no more being shady. From now on, call me Dragon Lady. And then there's my parents. Queer women. Maria, my mom, and Tina, who made us a family, who made my mom all right. But I just walked in and found them right after a blowout fight. Did they just tell me that they're breaking up? Is this but a dream and do I need waking up? If this is real life, then here's a big twist. True love and soulmates don't actually exist. Like I thought they did, like I thought I knew. How do they honestly think they'll get through? Hey mommy, you okay? I don't know, baby. You know, ever since I saw Tina singing on that stage in Anchorage, Alaska, I was sure that we would be together forever. Don't make me close one more door. I don't wanna hurt anymore. Stay in my arms if you dare, or must I imagine you there? Don't walk away from me. I have nothing if I don't have you. Mom was all alone. Do I stay or do I go? Abandon her like she did me, live my life finally free? I'm sorry, Sarah, for all the drama. I didn't ask, but I'm lucky to be your dragon mama. You know, at this point, I just gotta ask. What happens when you start losing everything when the things you had in the first place wasn't very much? Sometimes the universe thinks I'm not on the brink and can handle it. Take all my problems all at once and then scramble it. I'm the manifestation of 3 generations, but I gotta go, get to NYC, live my destiny, and then I'll be okay, right? No. My name is Sara Lee. I think it's time for me to become who I'm meant to be. Dragon, baby. I don't know, it sounds dragon. It's metaphorical. Anyway, right.
It's the it's the rah for me. That's what it is.
Thank you. I just wanted to say something real quick because people were. I love watching the chat. For those of you who have seen any iteration of Lady and Mama, you know how music is so key for each woman's story. And so I'm really excited in Dragon Baby of bringing those musical styles from Lady and Mama, my own musical sensibilities, the sensibilities of my composer Brian Quijada in Dragon Baby, and then fucking up the great American musical. That play will take place starting with me, my senior year of my BFA, being like, do I want to make theater? Is there a place for me? And then the show will end with this moment where I go, and I write the first lines of Dragon Lady and then blackout. So it'll literally be like full cycle. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed it. I haven't watched it in a minute. That was awesome.
That was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. Okay, well we have a few minutes left. I'd love to let's see. I'm gonna say again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. But while you're doing that, I just want to kind of check in about, you know how like you're an artist during a pandemic, and then your artist friends check in on you and say like, how are you doing it? How are you doing it during this pandemic? And this pandemic, it's like been what it is, and through the course of the year, it's like kind of overturning all of these stones, and we're seeing, it's kind of led us to this like socio-political revolution and activation, or rather a different kind of revolution and activation than there had been before. Between Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, trans rights. I'm curious to know, for both of you, is there anything in your view of like theater and your art making that has shifted during this time at all? Creatively or institutionally, theater, what do you think of it?
Sarah, do you have a thought on that?
Lots has shifted for me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking pretty much every day about accessibility. As somebody, I'm able-bodied, and there's a lot of my privilege regarding my able-bodiedness that I've taken for granted, especially in my career. And during this time where last year we all had to quarantine and so many people lost jobs, it really hit home for me in a way that I was ashamed about, frankly. For the first 2 months, I was like, how come you weren't thinking about this, Sarah? Now you have to think about it because everybody else is thinking about it. You're late. And then I was like, it's okay to feel ashamed. What happens when you try to move past that and you start thinking about awareness, moving into action, hopefully moving into allyship, and if not allyship, right, then action that is trying to mitigate harm. And so I just think that theater is not very accessible. It's not. It's just not very accessible. A lot of people love stories because of film and television. And I just wonder what we can do as a community to make theater more accessible. I also know that we overvalue, or we don't value equally, new stories over established stories, so that needs to change. We are seeing this institutional response to racial equity and racial justice. And I see a lot of move towards specifically hiring and diversifying teams. And I think that that is a very important step. But often what can happen then is that many people believe that that step is enough. And it's not, because what we have to do is we have to have a huge cultural shift. We have to reckon with our white supremacist transactional culture, which we are all complicit in. And we have to do that at the interpersonal level, between ourselves, the internalized level, but between us, our conscious and our unconscious selves, within institutions, institutional relationships, and then systemically. So this work needs to happen on those 4 levels all the time. So a lot of stuff has been shifting for me. It's like, how can I make theater accessible? How can I make my theater, what I'm doing, accessible? And I've been thinking a lot about TV and film, to be honest, as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew, how about you?
I second all of that. And I mainly wish that if everyone could conjure the most radical part of their soul that came to life as if in a Pixar film over the last year and a half, and that flame could be put in a locket and that locket could be put around their neck, I wish that upon everyone, because what I fear and I see already happening, which I'll say out loud in front of 70 witnesses, is the desire, it's scarcity mindset, the desire for something, right? I'll go into the theater, finally the theater, I'll see a musical that's 30 years old and racist because I get to be in the theater, right? And I'm not putting that on you as necessarily audience members. That sounds like hypercritical, but what I mean is that I feel like we're just so hungry for this thing we haven't had for a year and a half, so many versions of things we haven't had for a year and a half, that we are going to settle, right? Think about not doing something for a year and a half, and then you think about what you do when you haven't had something for a year and a half, and then you do something after that year and a half, and what you settle for. Just think about that. So the point is that everything that Sara said, but then I see in particular our industry forgetting so much that once existed inside their radical Pixar flame.
I love that.
That's not hopeful, but we got to stay rigorous. We have to be willing to walk away and break things and remember the part of ourselves that was reminded over the last year and a half that we are all dying. We are all progressively becoming disabled and will be disabled at one point in our lives. And how do you live with that empathy and that rigor at times where it's going to be so easy to forget it?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you both for this like incredibly robust conversation. This has been really wonderful. And there's just not enough time for us to really like, there's so much more. There's so much more. We're like scratching the surface. We do have time for maybe like one question, which is great because there's only one in the chat. So let's see. Robert Floor, Uncle Bob asked earlier. Hi, Uncle Bob. I so support the notion being presented about creating with the community in mind as a driving force. What types of strategies have you thought about when thinking about connecting the community to your works? You've been successful at this, and I'm a big fan.
To be very, very honest, I try to spend a lot of time reflecting, like, oh, why did I do that thing? And then why was that the result? And the one thing that has been consistent, that I will say the variable that hasn't really changed, is when I graduated from college and I decided to make new work, I decided in the same moment that the type of artist that I wanted to be was, I wanted that person to be authentic and honest, no matter what it cost. And that took a long time to be comfortable with. It took about 3 to 4 years to be comfortable practicing it, and then to have that transition with Intiman into institutional power. What I will say is that the relationships that I built as a result of me trying to be honest and accountable and authentic is what created community. Mm-hmm. So I haven't, up until now, really thought about specific strategies because I have access to resources and people in a way that I didn't before. But when I was making those relationships and building community in the first like 7 years of my career, the thing that didn't change is like if I'm honest and true and I actually practice articulating that, and then when I'm like held to task, I practice apologizing and I practice listening, then hopefully what I am doing is showing people that I can be trusted and that I trust them. And when I went to Boston and I had no idea, I didn't know anybody there. And all of a sudden my shows were sold out and the majority of people in the crowd were Black and brown. I was like, what? And a lot of people are like, it's because they did this article about you and you were like, I'm brown and I come from a Black and brown family and this is what I care about. And people read it and they were like, I care about that too. I think I have to constantly keep tabs on my own scarcity mindset. Andrew mentioned that. And I still have unconscious bits of that of being like, if I don't do it, then who else is gonna do it, right? Or it's like, it has to be me, and it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be me. That's why we have community, because we don't have to do everything. We don't have to be everything. That's not healthy. That's not sustainable. And that's a overvaluing of individualism, which is rooted in white supremacy. So I hope I answered the question. In terms of strategies, I'm still trying to figure that out right now, Uncle Bob. And looking back, I can see that unintentionally, my strongest, most consistent strategy has been working on my authentic self and communicating that to other people.
And
I mean,
oh yes.
Well, I just this is a yes and it's quick and I won't dwell on it, but the difference between storytelling and story sharing or story growing and just being able at a moment to say which of those is happening, because I think communities, especially communities that you're trying to embrace and represent on stage, can smell through that shit fast. And I have been on the good side of that and the really crunchy, gnarly side of that. And I say crunchy and gnarly because it leads to growth, right? I think of Yehano Sanin's quote, just fuck up in a different direction, right? But I think if you're doing that towards story growing or story sharing versus storytelling, you might just get there.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. You're such a good conversationalist.
Yay.
Who knew?
Talking, obviously, because Wesley had to like pop on and say, you're out of time.
Not at all. I'm over here fangirling over all of you, and also just all of you in the chat too. Janie and like hearing that, yeah, just sitting here in this Zoomiverse with all of you and Annalie, everyone, Kathy, thank you all so much for being here. And I want to share this screen right now. Did that come through? Yeah. Because wow, all of you have really been joining in, and thank you so much. If you haven't yet, now is the time to get out your phone and text Intiman to 44321, or you can click the link I just dropped in the chat. It's intiman.org/share the love. Now is the time to share the love. We started this morning with 110 donors. We were at 32,952, and we are now up to 144 donors. Oh my God, this is like really, really huge. I saw so many names flashing by. I saw Sarah's name on here. Thank you, Sarah. Look at this, Marty, amazing. Thank you so much, Marty. Paul Budritis, the director of the events. Laurie, Roger, thanks for being here today. Bobby, thank you for being here. It's like so incredible. This is really a moment of showing not just this community, but also the community outside of us. Funders, grant funders are going to be looking at these numbers saying, does Intiman have the support to go forward? And it's really, really significant. Even a $10 gift, just getting that donor count up really means a lot to the future of Intiman. So thank you so much for sharing the love. Just means an incredible amount to us. And we're only about $1,500 away from that $5,000 match, which will mean that we have raised $10,000 in one day. I think we can do it. I do want to take a moment to thank our funders, our grant funders. Some of them are in the house. We have For Culture, Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, Washington State Arts Commission, and Arts Fund. You know, it really takes a community, a village, like Kathy said, to support these institutions, which then are hopefully supporting these individual artists and investing in new work and building community so that it really does ripple out from there. So thank you all. Next week, Wednesday at 5 p.m., we have an amazing event. It is Writing Fantasy Worlds and Creating the Black Superhero. And Lisa Marie Rollins, who is our current visiting artistic associate, which is sort of like the evolution of the co-curator model, is going to be moderating that conversation with Dante Felder and playwright Inda Craig Galvan. And it's going to be amazing. It's free. We also launched our campaign rap party today. It's going to be the final day of the campaign, April 24th at 5 p.m., hosted by Major Scales. So make sure to join those events. It really means so much to have us all here, and to all of you in my screen that I'm seeing, Justin, Sarah, Andrew, we love you so much. Thanks for being part of the Intifam. It means so much to have you as part of this event. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.